Hello there. My name is Ramsley and welcome to the pit. Today I will be going over the Fiend's Advanced Master's Guide to the Highlander. For Honor's brutal, claymore-wielding Scotsman. This guide will assume that you are familiar with the basics of For Honor combat, and Highlander's basic moveset will not be covered. This guide will be split up into a few major sections. First, we will discuss the Highlander's various punishes, then we will move on to a discussion and demonstration of his advanced tech. Next, I will go over the main strategies that one should utilize while playing the Highlander, moving on to an explanation of his worst matchups with other heroes. Finally, I will end by discussing a few of Highlander's major weaknesses that you must be aware of if you are to be successful. Alright, it is time to begin. Highlander gets a light on guard break. He can also get the first part of his zone, but it will cost you in stamina. On a heavy parry, you get a free light. When you parry a light, you will get an offensive form heavy. To achieve this, you must hold your heavy input until you enter offensive form, and then immediately release. You are also guaranteed a kick, which in turn guarantees your heavy. Do this to drain extra stamina or to ledge your opponent. On a wall splat, you can get a defensive top heavy if timed correctly. However, if you buffer your input, you will likely get the offensive heavy for less damage instead. Keep in mind that you can still get your defensive top heavy even if you are out of stamina, though it may not work if you are too close to the wall. When you throw an opponent who is out of stamina, you can guarantee a light into top heavy for 60 damage. However, try to ensure that your guard is not set to the left, as this will likely cause this punish to fail. This punish is unchanged when parrying an opponent out of stamina. Both Highlander's kick and his grab guarantee his offensive form heavies, though his grab is far more punishable, and thus more dangerous to use. You should also know that a defensive top heavy is guaranteed after a wall splat from your kick. Whenever you find yourself dodge landing, be sure to keep in mind that you can only punish an attack with a kick if its possible follow-up light or bash is 500 milliseconds or slower. If your opponent has a 400 millisecond follow-up, you will only be able to interrupt their chain with an offensive light attack. Credit to Freeze for this specific information. There are some moves that can be punished with an offensive heavy directly, conserving the stamina that the kick would have cost you. Highlander has extremely powerful out-of-lock punishes. If you catch an opponent out of lock or performing an execution, you are guaranteed 2 defensive top heavies. You can also get the heavy after a Celtic curse. Though it is obviously matchup specific, you should keep in mind that you are guaranteed a top heavy after dodging Shugoki's Demon Embrace. As a warrior of culture, you should remember to make good use of Highlander's superior lights or crushing counters. Now that the guard switch delay has been removed from For Honor, they are far more effective and easy to use. The first of Highlander's tech that we will cover is his iconic wave dashing. It is well known that Highlander has decreased post-dodge recovery while in offensive form, though if you study a Highlander main, you may notice that they often switch their guard between each dodge. This is called wave dashing, and it allows the Highlander to even further decrease their dodge recovery. Next, we have another piece of tech which builds upon our wave dashing. Highlander can perform an infinite chain of offensive kicks by switching guard and dodging immediately afterwards. However, the only real uses of this are to ledge your opponent, get a top heavy on a wall splat, or flex your big perky Highlander muscles. When a Highlander uses his emote while in offensive form, it serves to cover up a possible guard switch as well as goad his opponent. When the emote is triggered, the animation and indicator movement are covered up, enabling either a surprise attack or a highly effective feint. This might not really be tech, but Highlander can soft feint his offensive heavies into an offensive light from the same side. This is mostly useless as the parry timings overlap, but it can be used to retreat quickly while staying in offensive stance. Strangely enough, this can be used to avoid Highlander's kick to grab mix-up, though I wouldn't recommend it. Surprisingly, Highlander's zone can be used as an option select parry. This obviously shouldn't be done too frequently, as baiting and parrying this slow of a move would be incredibly easy. Last, and possibly greatest of all, we have Highlander's other option select parry. By holding the heavy button as if to enter offensive stance, you can parry an attack. You may cancel out if your opponent cancels their attack, and thus you are still able to counter guard break. The timing is delicate and may require some practice. The goal is to get the option select consistently without actually entering offensive stance. When you perform this correctly, you may notice a slight twitch in Highlander's arm. As a Highlander, you are going to have a couple of different game plans, mix-up ideas, etc. that go with you into each fight. Think of these as your bread and butter. These are general situations and play styles that you will inevitably find yourself in time and time again. The first thing we will discuss is fighting heroes who do not have any form of innate dodge attack. In these cases your kick to grab mix-up will most likely be your most effective option. Since the dodge must be inputted before the Highlander's soft feint animation is shown, your enemy must determine if you are going to feint via prediction rather than reaction. Basically, they have two choices only. Do they assume you are only going to do the kick and dodge? This would open them up to the grab soft feint. If they anticipate the soft feint, they can either throw out a light attack or wait until after the kick would have hit to dodge the grab. Many people would call this a 50-50, and in some ways it is, though the enemy could always throw out a light rather than try to dodge. Some heroes do not have a very effective means of escaping this mix-up, with the major exception of the unlock roll, which I will discuss more later on. Next, we will discuss what happens when you find yourself up against a hero with dodge attacks. Essentially, your kick to grab is useless, though this has a few major exceptions that I will reveal shortly. In these fights, your mix-up becomes more like a game of rock paper scissors. Essentially, your mix-up has three main options. Instead of using your kick, you should use your offensive heavies. You can either feint to parry, feint to caber toss, or not feint at all. The idea is to steadily groom your opponent's expectations. Start by punishing their dodge attacks with your high damage light parries. Then, once they are afraid of dodge attacks, you start feinting to caber toss or guard break to catch their dodges. Eventually they will likely just do nothing and you can let the heavy fly for some direct damage. Keep in mind that these mix-ups only get more effective, and frankly cruel once your opponent runs out of stamina. In these cases your punish options are nearly endless. Some heroes have dodge attack moves that affect Highlander's primary mix-ups in important ways. For example, heroes like Warden, Lawbringer, Raider, and Conqueror all have dodge attack moves that are fundamentally different than those of your typical assassin. These moves can usually be caught by your kick to grab mix-up, but you can also choose to bait your opponent with a top heavy and punish them with a parry, a guard break or delayed heavy. You should be aware that Highlander's kick to grab mix-up will usually catch both Valkyrie and Gladiator in their respective dodge attacks. It's weird, I know. You may want to consider using Highlander's crushing counters instead of regular parries against heroes that have heavy dodge attacks such as Shaolin, Kensei, Shaman, and more. Superior lights do more damage. but their stamina drain is about half of a traditional parry. For this reason, you might want to consider parrying if their stamina is already low. When you fight with the Highlander, you will inevitably end up in situations where an opponent is right up in your face, making it difficult for you to enter offensive stance. This is a common strategy people use when fighting Highlanders, because his offensive stance is undoubtedly the source of his most threatening abilities. You will find that it is dangerous to use your light attacks, as they are 600 milliseconds and so are very easy to parry. In these situations, your best bet is probably your backward light. Simply walk backward while performing a light attack and you will make your lights essentially unparryable. From there you can fast flow into offensive form and proceed with your mix-ups. Alternatively, you can also try to trade using Celtic Curse or hope they don't hit you while you switch directly into offensive stance. Once you're in, you can pepper your opponent with offensive lights to try and force a reaction. Another thing to try, especially since its recovery was recently shortened significantly, is trading using your combo top heavy. This will catch many opponents off guard who are expecting you to fast flow into your offensive stance. Also, you can quick switch to offensive form and try to bait out a sick parry. Another question you might ask, is when the Highlander should feint his offensive heavy to a kick versus feinting to a grab. First, it is important to know that the dodge timings of the heavy and the heavy to kick soft feint overlap, and so an opponent can easily dodge this mix-up. On the other hand, the soft feint to grab will catch their dodge. Essentially, you want to feint to grab if they are more often trying to dodge your heavies, while feinting to kick if they are trying to parry them. To complicate this idea even further, you want to use your feint to grab against heroes who are out of stamina or who have slow heavies such as another Highlander. The reason for this is because your feint to grab will still catch them if they dodge or parry, whereas a feint to kick would likely miss if they were to dodge. You can also use your heavy to kick soft feint on dodge bash attacks like Lawbringer's Shovel Warden's dodge bash. But there is little to no benefit over the feint to grab since both are vulnerable to guard break. The grab does more stamina damage than the kick, but for 4 versus 4 game modes, the kick is faster and leaves you far less vulnerable. Highlander's offensive form triple soft feint, heavy to kick to grab, is often quite effective against opponents who are out of stamina. Use a regular kick more often than your kick to grab because your kick cannot be guard broken if your opponent dodged on reaction. Also, you get a guaranteed follow-up kick if they try to guard break after dodging the first one. After landing a hit, quick flow into and the back out offensive stance. Then immediately guard break your opponent for a sneaky waltz plat punish. In a Highlander mirror match, the backstep light can be used to negate the kick to grab mix-up, however, the attacking Highlander can do an offensive heavy that will hit instead. Highlander can also beat the backstep light with a delayed caber toss. Though it must be used rarely, the second light in Highlander's chain can sometimes be used to trade unexpectedly with the enemy, or get you into offensive stance. It is often quite effective to be almost oppressive with Highlander's offensive lights, as they have been buffed recently and now cost less stamina. They can beat out most fast lights, and will force opponents who are light attack happy to do something else. Use weird guard switches to confuse your opponents, and expect assassins to do a dodge attack after just a few of these. When you are in offensive form and low on stamina, dodge backwards and gain some distance. Wait a second or two. Your opponent will likely dodge forward to close the distance and you can get a free offensive heavy. Often, when you dodge towards an enemy while in offensive form, they will dodge backward in anticipation of a kick or offensive lights. Highlander's Celtic Curse can sometimes be used to dodge attacks. A good tactic with the Highlander is, to the dismay of many, to hover some distance from the opponent and react to their attacks with offensive dodges and heavies. In these situations, the Highlander can intentionally whiff an offensive heavy to bait his opponent into attempting to punish it. Then the Highlander can dodge the punish attempt and get a free kick or light. You can also feint into your defensive heavies for deceptive trades using your high damage uninterruptible heavies. When fighting against another Highlander, remember that when dodging a kick of your own is not guaranteed unless you dodged very early. Instead, you will only get an offensive light. The dodge battles within a Highlander mirror match are the stuff of legends. Highlander can crush encounter the second part of Gladiator's zone. And though it may be hard to do on reaction, you should remember that you can heavily punish deflects with your defensive combo heavies. Though it is true that Highlander has a more difficult time fighting heroes with dodge attacks, there are some heroes whose matchups with him are particularly one-sided. Jang Jun and Tiandi are particularly difficult to beat due to their number of dodge attack options. Both can hard feint their dodge attacks, and JJ has an additional soft feint to light that further complicates the matchup. Tiandi has the ability to chain his dodge attacks in many different ways, and the undodgeable property on his dodge lights makes him like kryptonite to Highlander's offensive stance. In addition to his dodge attack, Jang Jun can also beat your kick to grab mix-up with his own dodge into Sifu stance. In these matchups, feint to guard break is likely to be your best friend. However, sometimes the best that you can do is try to be as random as possible. You may also find that a barrage of offensive lights and dodges may enable you to overcome these opponents. The first, and most immediately apparent of Highlander's shortcomings is the slow speed of his lights. From neutral, his light attacks are 600 milliseconds, which makes it very difficult to get someone out of your face without getting yourself buried. This also affects your crushing counter-strikes, as they are made easy to bait and parry by the slow speed of this move. Next, we have the high guard break vulnerability of Highlander's Celtic Curse. Because this move is initiated by first inputting a dodge, this move is naturally vulnerable to being interrupted with a guard break. Be sure to keep this in mind or you will surely suffer the consequences. Last, and most frustratingly of all, we have the unlock roll. This move makes it possible to wholly avoid Highlander's kick to grab mix-up, despite the recent changes to the guard break on roll properties. You will be unable to stop an opponent from rolling out of your mix-up. Also, an opponent can dodge backwards diagonally to avoid the kick to grab as well. For the sake of all Highlanders, let's hope these issues are fixed soon. Once again, my name is Ramsley, and I hope that you have both enjoyed and benefited from this masterclass style guide to the Highlander. I speak for the Fiend himself when I say that he has greatly enjoyed getting to know his viewers on YouTube. He hopes to see the Highlander community within For Honor continue to grow in these uncertain times, and to help facilitate this, he has left an open invitation to our community Discord in the description of this video. We hope to see you there. Goodbye until next time, and Long live the Highlander.